Hello and welcome to Automation and Integration by Significans Automation. Today our guests are Enfocus, and myself, Chris, is also delighted to welcome Scott Allen from Minuteman Press. Let's just test if people's keyboards are working. So far we have Peter. Hello, Peter from Belgium. We've got Mike from Philadelphia. We've got Sylvain from France. We've got Alexandra from Northern France as well. Ontario, Utah, USA. Hey Tom, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Hey Carl, Rick. I'm going to see if my guests want to add anything while we're waiting for people to come in. Marc, as our host today, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, just a big thank you for participating and thanks for making this interactive. Really appreciate the questions. We look forward to having conversation.
David, thank you for joining us. Davy, I understand you're feeling a little bit under the weather today, so thank you for joining us. Anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Well, if I sound very strange, it's because of the flu. So I've been hit by the flu since the beginning of the week, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity to speak to you guys as well. So if I feel a little bit faint, you know why.
Excellent. Thanks, David. We really appreciate it. Okay, so I'm gonna kick off, gentlemen. Thank you everyone for jumping in the chat already. We've got James as well. Hey James, thanks for joining us. Okay, so as I said right at the beginning of the session today is about automation and integration. It's a seminar, so we'd like to see you jumping into the chat at all points, and please do ask any question. No question's a silly question, and our guys and our team on the call will do their best to get back to you as they can. And if we miss anything through today's session, we will follow up post-session where a recording will go out. And if at any point you'd like to take a conversation offline, just drop your email in the chat and we'll make sure one of our team get back to you. So like I say, seminar, let's make this interactive. Okay, so on to our guests. Well, first and foremost, let's go back to Davy. Davy, you are the Enfocus App Store and Partner Manager. Do you want to just give us a quick overview? Very high level?
Well, I've been with Enfocus for 4 years now. I started off as the Switch product manager and migrated to a new role last year in May as being the App Store manager. App Store itself has been around since 2016. So this year we're celebrating the 10 years anniversary of the App Store. And really the App Store is the environment where you have to look at if you're a Switch customer, to look for new tools, to look for new integrations, because we have a lot of our app creators building new tools and new integrations on a daily basis, where also Marc and his team is part of this vast ecosystem.
I love the passion there, and you're quite right, that's why this partnership works so well. Lovely segue on to Marc. Marc, the President of Significans Automation. Give us a quick helicopter overview.
Well, I founded the company back in 2018, and it was really on the context that there is a lot of software coming in our space, and we have incredible opportunity with that software to innovate and automate businesses like Minuteman Press, who we're really privileged to have here on the call today.
Excellent. And again, Marc, fantastic overview. Lovely segue. Scott Allen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always brilliant to have a real life case study. Give us a quick overview before we jump into the finer details later on.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for the invite. I'm the operations manager for Minuteman Press Westendorf. We have 2 facilities here located in the Miami Valley. That's the Dayton, Ohio region. And thank you all again for inviting me to participate.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll be your moderator for today. I'm very proud to have worked with everyone here, bar Scott, funny enough. And I was absolutely blown away recently when reading the case study on Minuteman Press Westendorf and what these guys have achieved. But more so the mindset and the adoption of software and integration from Scott throughout his career. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with you all. Okay, Davy. So now you can go into a little bit more about the App Store and why it's so important to the print industry.
Well, thank you, Chris. Now, I hope actually that the audience all knows Switch and what Switch can do and what Switch can offer for every graphical company in the world. Switch always has been a way of connecting anything with everything. And not every company is the same. So we have companies, for example, that use MIS system X, MIS system Y. They have different means of production. They have different ways of connecting, for example, their e-commerce platform. And already since the beginning of Switch, we wanted that flexibility, that openness to be able to connect with anything. So we never actually had the intention to have a very closed down system where we only direct which kind of partners and which kind of integrations that we wanted to do. No, we always have been very open. I already mentioned that in the introduction. 10 years ago, we launched the Enfocus App Store. And why did we launch the Enfocus App Store? What is the whole idea behind it? Because Switch already exists for more than 20 years. I think we're heading off to 25 years of existence of Switch as well. And I think next year in 2 years. Why did we open the App Store? Because of that openness. That openness was always very, let's say, specific for the customer. So that meant that every customer that wanted to integrate with a third-party system had to do it themselves with the tools that we offer, like, for example, the scripting module in the Enfocus Switch. They do it themselves, or they ask an integrator, like Significans, for example, to build that integrations for them. Downside is no other Switch user was able to benefit from that integration. And it was very bespoke and unique integration. But the scripting is there, the connection is there. So 10 years ago, we decided, okay, why do we redo that exercise every time we want to integrate with product X or product Y? Or, for example, we need a tool that manipulates XML files or TXT files. Why do we do this over and over again? Why don't we have a platform where we can share that integration, share those developments with other Enfocus Switch customers? And that is also the reason why we actually started with the Enfocus App Store 10 years ago, to share that knowledge, to share that integration, and make it available for every Switch customer out there.
Wow, Davy, that's fantastic. And I think that's a lovely way for us to lead on to Marc. Marc, I mean, the partnership between Enfocus and Significans is pretty unrivaled, and obviously the case studies and the data and the customers speak for themselves. But let's just go back a second here, Marc, and let's just explain a little bit about Significans and, you know, what makes this kind of partnership and your approach a little bit different with how you use these products.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and thanks, Davy. Yeah, when we founded the company, we realized that there's some incredible software that's available in our space. And being a neutral integrator, and that means really we provide a solution and not products at the end of the day. And those solutions are based upon budgets and aptitude and skill sets, and most importantly, the applications that we're trying to fit and automate and integrate with. So having had that philosophy as a foundation, when we started the business, we realized that there's no one software that's going to do it. In fact, we wish there was one software that would do it all, but it would be really, really impossible. So being a neutral vendor, we looked at what are our options. We realized that Enfocus, with that openness to be able to script and code and develop apps, would be a very unique proposition, not only to a value-added reseller like ourselves, but more importantly, to the end user. People like Scott who are saying, hey, you know what, I've got two businesses I'm trying to run. I'm trying to automate. Both businesses are doing very unique projects for the customer base. What else can we do? So we started developing apps in 2020 for Enfocus. Today we have 10 formidable apps on the App Store. We're going to be growing that to a dozen by mid-year this year. We feel that that's just the perfect segue to keep things open and available to the customer base. And more importantly, we also value the partners and our peers that are part of the community, because they're also building some incredible apps that are being made available to an automation schema like Switch and the portfolio. And we feel that's really, really important at the end of the day. And And you know, Davy, I will share this. Davy did ask me last week, so why do you guys keep developing apps for the App Store and not do it for yourselves? Well, I guess we're going to address that in a couple of minutes, but I'll lead in by saying it's being part of a community and sharing that makes the graphic arts quite unique.
Makes the point in the chat that one of these apps is even in the top 5 of the most downloaded. I think that's something to be proud of. So congratulations to Significans, first of all, for making the top 5 in the global charts. I think also anybody on the call today, if you'd like to know more about the apps that Significans have developed with Enfocus on the screen right now or anything else, please drop your email in the chat and we'll make sure that someone will get back to you.
Would you go to another slide to show our reach of where the apps are reaching today? So Significance does have a business entity in Canada and the US and Europe. And despite that, the apps are being used around the world, as you can see here. And we're really, really excited that these apps are being well used. Some are for a fee, and the majority of them are freebies as well. And we felt that that was the best way for us to introduce our capabilities to the graphic arts community, where we service both print, pack, brand, and agency today.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark.
Thank
That's
you.
fantastic. And congratulations on that top 5 placing. Here's to top 4. Scott, so nice. Thank you so much once again for coming on. You know, it's very important that we get to hear from a real printer. You know, this is not marketing fluff. We're going to discuss with you really your automation journey and what you believe in and everything else. How long have you been using Enfocus products, Scott? Let's go right back and get an understanding of your use of the software and understanding.
Actually, my first introduction to an Enfocus software was with Pitstop back in the late 90s. It's a solid product as the pre-press was expanding from OpenDoc and the PDF started floating in from the client base. We needed a way to work with our files in a more robust manner, and I was actually introduced to it at the print show in Chicago, and I've been an advocate of its use ever since. There's not really much you're going to do robustly in a pre-press workflow without having a tool as Pitstop.
Oh, wow, that's pretty impressive. Scott, what sort of problems were you solving back then? What does that tell us about how you stayed to pre-press over the last 20 years plus?
Mostly is fonts, RGB color. Clients were notorious for sending those in. Pitstop had a pretty solid solution for all of that, so it wasn't hard to figure out for the money spent. Your ROI was pretty fastly returned with half a dozen jobs.
Excellent. And if you had to describe the evolution as a crawl, walk, run, what does crawl look like in the real pre-press team, and what does the run look like for you today?
Well, I kind of like to use that scenario because I think it relates to users. You have to have a scheme in mind. What are you going to do? What do you need to do? That's, to me, the crawl stage. And when you're crawling, you help learn how to walk and run. That's where we found the integration solutions with Significans to help us along that way. Because quite frankly, I've been involved with numerous projects like this, and mission creep can happen pretty quickly. But I'd covered enough footprint of other facilities to know what they were using, and I kept finding a common denominator between all of them. They were all using Switch. So the walk part was, to start to get the pieces in place, and the run part was to get all them pieces in place now and get them to run together. We were fairly unique in that manner, where we had two facilities that really didn't have a lot in common, and they didn't have a common communication tool on how we would move graphics around. They were using different products, so that's where the run comes in. And when you run, sometimes you just got to look back and see where you came from and where you're at, and that's where your assessment of the project comes in. So that's kind of what I envision with that.
Excellent, Scott. And so you've been working with Enfocus for a while. You've got it embedded, let's say, into your business systems. When did you engage with Marc and Significans?
Well, I was referred to Marc back in November of 24. We were looking for someone to provide that. I went back to other integrators that I'd used in the past, and they were already committed to other projects. I said, who do you recommend out there?
I'd be careful sharing that information. Excellent.
Very happy with that.
Just before we dive on to the numbers of what has been achieved between all of you guys on the call today, Marc, is there anything you'd like to respond to with regards to that first meeting from the car park in Chicago?
I'm glad I took the call. That was it. We often get the story, wow, you pick up the phone, and we certainly did. And Scott introduced himself very, very eloquently, gave me his background, gave me who was referring us, and his project sounded very, I don't want to say commonplace, because nothing is commonplace in our industry, but it was something that we have a lot of experience doing, from pre-flighting to imposition to automating those steps, relieving the touch points in the business, that I said, we have to meet again. I'd love to introduce you to my team. And we proceeded from there to get into a discovery with Scott and his team.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. So what I'm going to do now is let's review some of the numbers and what was achieved between Enfocus, Significans, and Scott and his team. So there was 30% reduction in labour costs. There was a turnaround time of up to 50% faster. $60,000 of annual savings from optimised staffing. ROI on the original investment in 12 months, or I think we were discussing under 12 months, but we'll round it up. And jobs that were previously took 1 to 7 hours are now completed in 5 hours or less. Now, all of this is a snippet from the case study that can be downloaded from the Significans website, where you can find out more. And I think if you're looking at integrating and really working on your workflow, I really do recommend you download this and have a good look. And then finally, one of the results I just wanted to highlight on was a quote from Scott. Our 2 production facilities and CSRs now communicate seamlessly together, saving hours of work and reducing errors. Fantastic. Thank you, Scott. And again, if you'd like to download it, I'll just leave this up on the screen. Please use the QR code and download the Minuteman Press Westendorf and see how they transformed its business and customized its workflows, powered by Enfocus and overseen by the amazing team at Significans Automation. Okay, right, I think we're at the point now where we're going to open the floor up a little bit. This is where we let you guys that are on the call put some questions in the chat. I'm going to just stop sharing for the minute, and I am just going to let's see what's any questions in. I've got a few preloaded questions here that I'm going to ask straight away, if you don't mind. Fantastic results as well, guys. And Enfocus, well done. Something you should be proud of. Scott, I've got one if you don't mind. I'm going to jump straight in. Let's talk about the early challenges that pushed you towards automation. I think you covered some of them in the earlier pieces, but just remind us what sort of drove you to that phone call with Marc, and what was the most painful part that really tipped you over the edge before making that investment. Okay, and thank you, Scott. And I've got one here for Davy. Davy, from Enfocus's perspective, going back onto the App Store here now, what's the App Store's original vision, and how do you see it evolving from where you first started?
Mm-hmm. Well, the original vision is also, like I said in my introduction, to be able to provide custom-made, ready-made integrations to all our Switch customers without any hassle, without any additional cost, additional labor, additional whatever, to actually make that integration themselves. We do this through partnerships. We have, I think, more than 100 partnerships already on the App Store. That resulted already in more than 340 apps on the App Store as well. And we're going to continue doing that. Meaning, for example, that my job is there to get more apps on the App Store. That's my job. That's what I do on a daily basis. And also actually getting new partners enrolled that see the value of automation and see the value of integration as well, where we work together to be able to actually, one, get connected. That's one thing. But the other thing is also, what is the value of being connected? What is the added value for, one, the partner, but in the end also, and the most important one, what is the added value for the customer? And it all depends. Is this a Switch customer already, yes or no? So there's two levels of where it becomes, where the value is different. One, you're not a Switch customer yet, but you have an MAS system, you have a web shop, you have a lot of DFEs. It could be, for example, that you're using HP machines or Canon machines, or, for example, you're in wide format, etc., etc., and you want to start automating your business. How do you approach this? You can have a automation platform out of the box, install it, and start building your automation. But then you still need that connectivity. So you still need to invest to actually write that code that makes it that allows the system to talk to those different DFEs. Because an industry or a company is not run by one software products alone. Sorry, I think Scott, could you mute yourself because I hear myself in your feedback.
Keep going, Davy.
Thank you. So, a company is not run by one software. It's actually different softwares talking together that make sure that a company is running. Now, if you're not a Switch user and you buy an out-of-the-box automation platform, you already have that, but you still have the investment, and a huge investment, not only in money but also in time, to connect everything. If you buy a Switch, every Switch customer has access to the App Store. You start downloading the apps, you start building your flows, you set up some properties in those apps, you're up and running. I'm going to let you ask that question to somebody else, but I ask somebody else in the audience, how much time needs to be invested to get a Switch automation up and running with apps from the App Store? You will be surprised. So that is one part of the environment. The second part is, I'm already an Enfocus Switch customer. I'm already using apps. I'm already integrated with, for example, my MIS system or my e-commerce platform. But now I want to invest in new hardware or in new software. I want to add, for example, a new machine that will allow me to print faster, or, for example, be able to diversify and produce other products. A Switch customer's mindset is not picking just any kind of technology because it looks nice and has nice colors and bells and whistles and those kind of things. A Switch customer is going to look at, what about connectivity? Can I feed that beast, that machine, that software from my Switch automation platform? Because he's now already automated his company for 90% of his jobs. He's not going to go back to the previous state. He's not going to go back and feeding that machine with those jobs manually or inputting all the data manually in a third-party system because it's not able to connect to Switch because there's no connectivity. And a lot of our customers, and certainly customers that are already using Switch for 3, 4, 5 years, before they do an investment, they go to the App Store, they type in, is there a connection for Canon, HP, Fiery, whatever? And if there's an app on the App Store, I'm not saying it's going to be a conclusive decision, but it's going to be part of the decision to do that investment in that hardware and software if there's already an app on the App Store. Because they know, there's connectivity, I just need to download that app and connect it, and I actually can further automate my whole infrastructure, the whole company.
And you're watching the Automation and Integration Seminar Series here, hosted by Significant Automation. Thank you, Davy. That's fantastic. Tom Ruff says yes, he gives me the thumbs up. He is using the Enfocus App Store. Mike Powell jumps in the chat and says, is this primarily for an offset pre-press world or automating the processing of already created PDFs? Who would like to jump on that question there?
I can jump in there if you want. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
No, Davey, you're on a roll. Go ahead.
Well, it is not only for offset, it's not only for prepress, it's not only for PDFs, it is also for any file format actually. Switch can receive zip files, can receive JPEGs, can receive Word files, any kind of type of document. We do have tools, for example, that can do the conversion from a certain file to a PDF. We have connectivity with cloud-based storage. We have connectivity with other ERP systems or MIS systems. So it's not purely for pre-pressed tasks, and it's not purely for PDF related files as well.
Fantastic. Marc, Raad.
Yeah, I would concur and just add that that we have the experience of implementing the Switch solutions across the board in print, in pack, in promotional print. We have the privilege of interacting with at least 20 new customers every couple of months. And so we see through our experiences what has worked, what hasn't worked, what are the best applications, what are the best apps from the App Store to include in the ultimate configuration for customers that have certain needs. Now, Scott came to us, and really for him it was we have a business, a compelling business need to move into more automation. And Scott, you'll elaborate on this, I hope, but that business requirement was they were making a huge investment in digital print, and they wanted to remove all the touch points as much as possible. So we looked at what was required, and at the end of the day, the recipe was quite simple. We're going to get you Switch. We're going to get you the modules that make sense for Switch, but we're also going to get you the right apps that will help automate and accelerate the timetables to an ROI here for you. And nothing out of the box works with a snap of the finger. We have our own what we call turbo switch packs, which are automation out of a box and basically fully deployed in 8 hours. But really, Scott's circumstances, like I would say 99% of the customer base that we've had the privilege of doing business with, it's always custom. It's always a one-off. And most of the customers that come to us say, well, this is a little bit uncharted for us. What can you do to help? And so that's where the experience comes in. And I got to tell you, we have probably the best team in North America to help out with that type of deployment.
Fantastic, Marc.
I know Planet Press, I heard about Planet Press, but I'm not an expert in Planet Press, so I cannot for sure say, for example, what Planet Press does compared to Switch. But we can always investigate. Also, for example, Marc is also very positioned in comparing solutions with each other, and Marc can certainly help out comparing, for example, what is the strength of Planet Press, and for example, can Switch match those strengths and add additional value on top of that. But for this, before actually saying yes and we are better and whatever, we need to know what Planet Press can do before we can do a statement like that.
Thanks, Davy. So, Marc, going back to your point, and this is actually a question that came in, and I think it's a perfect link, actually. To Marc, why build and publish apps in the App Store instead of delivering bespoke scripts and one-off integrations per customer? You briefly touched on that just a second ago, right?
Yeah, I did. And thanks for bringing that up again. So it's a very simple answer. The reach that Enfocus has developed and the community that they developed is so, for lack of a better word, it's such a beautiful and fantastic, genius opportunity to reach customers from all over and in every segment. And the only way to do that is to latch on to a corporation that has it all made and has had decades of experience like Enfocus to basically latch onto. And so we decided, hey, from the beginning, let's develop these apps because we're going down the path of acquiring more knowledge about Switch, deploying more Switch, integrating Phoenix and Griffin as soon as they got into there. into their price books and their product portfolio. And we thought, okay, let's continue developing more apps that make sense for customers like Scott and his team.
Fantastic. And now to Scott. I mean, we need to get you back into this conversation. Development.
Well, I think it's to go back with what Marc had indicated is the robust solution that Enfocus has provided. It's a solid platform. You can just look at the availability, and then of course you got your own. So like with us, I mean, we had literally 4 devices that needed to be serviced and at multiple facilities. I can literally take that SKU and move it to any device that I choose to effortlessly and make sure that I have a good file. And it's scalable. So what you buy today is not obsolete tomorrow. You know, that's the key. Normally when you get into proprietary systems you're sold, they're encapsulated into what you bought it for. That's the thing I really sold me on choosing Switch, is the scalability for what I may want to do tomorrow.
Fantastic. Marc, Raad.
I want to add to that. My team is always looking at what is only the best solution for customers like Scott, but what has that longevity play, and what sets the foundation for the next 5 years of development, but more automation, more ingestion. And so again, being a neutral vendor, we have multiple choices we can bring our customers. We lean towards Switch and their portfolio because again, we look at the longevity of their playbook and say, hey, this is going to be around for the next 5 to 10 years easily. So we look at what we're positioning with our customers as if we're buying it for ourselves and then deploy it with the experience and the magic of the team.
Marc, I've got another question for you here, really, and it's a really important one. The numbers are fantastic on the case study. Obviously, Scott's clearly happy he's joining us today to share that. But what's the first step in building the ROI on a software automation project like you did for Scott? Or maybe talk us through what you actually did for Scott and Minuteman.
Yeah, from that perspective, we normally get into a bit of a formal assessment. And the assessment is, let us understand what is current state. What does that map out to be? And it's like sketching out what is the reality of the circumstances so that we can get full perspective and clairvoyancy on what the next step might be, and that is improving upon the current state. So we normally map out what is current state, move on to mapping out what is a proposed future state, and then break it down into bite-sized phases or quick wins for the customer. That's been a methodology of ours since the beginning. We have improved upon it every year so that we can provide better value in what we call a pre-sale circumstance with the customer. And that means that they're getting into a situation of full comfort, but also full congruency of what does the future look like for them. And then we document that, we submit that, we align on it, and then following that, of course, there's a proposal of what the professional hours would look like for a project.
Fantastic. And I think that leads me on to my next question. If someone's looking to kick off a journey like Scott's been into, and this is open to all of you, what's the first steps? And I think let's get a perspective from Davy and Scott next, if you don't mind, Marc.
Please.
How should they start?
Rather than just calling Marc. You want me to? Let me help, because I think the guys are quiet. I think the first step is doing what Scott did, acknowledge that he needs help, and then develop a relationship with a coach like Significans to provide that knowledge and that understanding and that experience that this is easy. This is a walk in the park for a company like ours to do. There are many peers to ours that can do the same thing in certain circumstances, but it's really going to those who have had the experience and the knowledge. And I think that's why Scott felt very, very comfortable after the first call to go forward. Scott, what might you have to add?
Well, Scott, I was going to say, from an internal point of view, how do you, Marc, you reached out to you, how do you kick that off internally?
needed help. I just didn't know how much or where or what it was going to look like, or, let's just say what it was going to cost. Once I started digging into all those factors and looking at what we had, it was a pretty easy solution because, I'll just be honest, other vendors were involved too. But the clear-cut person that rose above that for ours and our perspective was the instantaneous. You could feel that Marc and his crew knew exactly what we needed to do. And they had goal sets. We hit our timeline. We had weekly calls. Everything was kept in check. To me, it was one of the smoothest projects I've ever done. And I could tell that they had did it before, to be honest with you.
From me, if you don't mind, the stats that we covered earlier on from the case study, what do they look like before?
I've struggled with, because we've really had no infrastructure for that, and the crawl, I would say we almost were slithering in that sense, just to get us up to the point of having our pre-press as an integrated team, being able to have them work together as one. This was a key piece that was missing, and once that was in place, normally in these projects you have a lot of change management. This is one where the change was welcomed, and it was kind of like this saying, high time this has happened. I've been struggling with this, so that's my perspective.
Nice.
Well, the thing that I liked about Significans is they not only were able to spec the products and the pieces, they were advising us on the servers and things that we needed in order to accomplish this. Like I had indicated before I lost conductivity, is we had a series of 4 servers at 2 different locations, and the newest one was 16 years old. We needed a quick solution on that fast, and they, with their specs to our IT support, we had that thing ordered and it was literally on our floor in 3 days. And
Fantastic.
that was that was everything. That was the start. That was what we needed in place. And then when I would walk by in the server room, I could see them in there going away. Now, I'm not an IT person, but I know they were busy in there. And so a couple weeks went by, and then things started happening pretty quickly.
Fantastic. Thank you, Scott. I'm just going to jump back into the chat right now. So Daniel says, looking forward to 2026 and finally making the leap. Daniel, are you intimating you're making the leap to integrate or automate something? Please pop it in the chat and let us know what you're looking forward to making the leap to. Sebastian puts, have to jump off. Sorry, no, thank you, Sebastian. Thank you for joining us. We'll make sure we send you the recording. I'm going to just come over to Davy, if I may. Davy, how do you think that the automation, what do you think about the automation and its own pace? What does a sensible roadmap look like to you as the software vendor working with the good team at Significans and the customer?
Difficult question with a more, and there's no straight answer because every company is unique, and it has to do with how far do you want to go, what is your own comfort zone, what do you want to automate, because that is sometimes already a difficult question to answer. Because I asked the question already several times to prospects or visitors, and I asked the question, what do you want to automate? 90% of the guys, their answer was everything. and it all depends. Yeah, and it all depends. For example, again, what type of company you are, size of company, how many jobs do you process at a daily basis, but also what are the current tools that you're using today. For example, a lot of wide format companies, mostly the smaller ones, how do they handle incoming files on a daily basis? They, for example, before it's sent off to production, they open the PDF file in Acrobat, and then they notice, oh, that's not the correct black combination, or I need additional margin left and right. And what do? They open it up in Illustrator. And then if they open it up in Illustrator, they are hit with a lot of problems. They don't have the font that the customer has used. It's converting to another color space. It is changing this, and this. And then suddenly the file that the customer has delivered does not resemble the original file anymore, and they spent an hour, 2 hours making sure that file is ready for production. But maybe that type of customer is not ready yet for a full-blown automation platform where everything is happening in the background, and where, for example, they cannot see, and maybe sometimes they also do not trust what is happening in the background. And for a lot of those companies, maybe the first step is getting Pitstop involved, for example. Where, for example, with the tools that Pitstop offer, they already can do some manipulations on the PDF file, but they also can visually see what is happening if they do specific touch-ups and what the result is in the end. Marc, you had some additions on this?
Yeah. You said the right term, and I've been saying that for years. It's about building trust and confidence with the automation that you're configuring, and Scott suggests crawl, walk, run, but from our perspective, the way we go to market is we're building the automation schema based upon two attributes, and we're getting it right from the customer. Those two attributes is data and logic. If we have that, then we can build the automation beautifully, but it's based upon what the customer allows us to configure into their automation, and therefore it should be very, very comfortable. I'm going to suggest, even on a very banal way, that people are setting up their own automation at home or around their office or in their car, and then they build the trust with that. It's the same thing with workflow automation or pre-press automation.
Exactly.
You just got to take some time to say, oh boy, this is good, and it's going to be great. So you can go from good to great instantaneously, but it doesn't happen overnight. We take some configuring time and deployment time and testing time to make it right. And I think that's what Scott realized when we got involved, and especially one of our workflow specialists. She went through the whole thing in the beginning and said, okay, Scott, we're going to bring this to you. We're going to bring you a workflow. We need you to test, give us some feedback. And the feedback was very, very, very good, but I would say it probably got him 80% very quickly. And then we tweaked, and then he's at 100% of what his expectations were from the beginning. Scott, I think you need to acknowledge that or deny what I just said.
Absolutely. You hit it right on the head. And along with that, I would also encourage the word trends. So can you imagine, I've heard everything you said, and it's basically the struggles and strife of pre-press from day one. So if you can take your SKU, your piece from your client, and put it in one source every time, and you're getting it through your workflow, can you imagine the task that you eliminate if a user had to do that on his desktop for every file? That's the key. That's where the success comes in. And like I said, to reiterate, we had 4 assets we needed to serve. And I can quite literally take that piece at any point in time and I can give it to any one of them effortlessly. Now again, if you had to go back to your desktop on each one of them, what time does that cost? It's incredible where we were at a year and a half ago and where we're at today. It's really taken a lot of burden off that mundane over and over task and put it into something where I'm working on something else. I know that's being taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. And I got 8 users using it at any given time at 2 facilities. So
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic, Scott. I'm just going to jump in here, chaps, real quick. So I asked Daniel just before a few moments ago what he was going to make the leap for. He then comes back and says, Mark's been patient with me for too many years to speak of. Marc, obviously you've acknowledged that, but that really does speak volumes in terms of your approach on how you look at each customer and their individual workflow and what their needs and requirements are. Peter's jumped in as well. Which kind of printing devices and technologies and DFEs is Scott using today? Scott, let me just bring you in on that. That's a really good question there.
So we're completely committed to Konica Minolta for our digital solution. They use EFI for that. EFI brings a lot to the table in respects to that, especially for the color and the color management going back and forth for the devices. And even our iJet device uses an EFI RIP also. So I'm comfortable with all that. Prior to that, I don't know exactly. Those devices are no longer on board with us, but now having a common core with all that has made color and managing it, all the processes all the way through, pretty. It's about as 100% as you can get.
Thanks, Scott. Davy, if I can just come back to you real quick. We've discussed offline before about growing businesses and the challenges they face in a new year now. What are the most common challenges do you see emerging in 2026, and why do legacy approaches struggle with common day challenges and approaches?
I think a lot of companies, is that this is also something I heard during Printing United last year as well, is growing pains, being able to grow the business, being able not only, for example, I do not mean, for example, being able to put more machines there or to hire more staff. Every company has a certain maximum amount of jobs that they can process on a daily basis. And they have two choices. One choice is hire more pre-press operators, for example, to be able to process more jobs. So opening up those PDFs, making sure they're correct, modifying them, and pushing them to the machines. That will allow them to being able to process more jobs on a daily basis. But there's one big bottleneck here, is that finding trained staff is very difficult nowadays. And also, sorry to say, is that the experience in pre-press, the experience in PDFs is also going away. There's not a lot of people out there anymore, and certainly in the the youth, for example, that take an interest in printing industry, that take an interest in, for example, pre-press. So we're lacking that knowledge, and those skill sets are going away. And the only thing that we can do here is, for example, is taking the knowledge that you have in the company and translate that into an automation platform, where, for example, the people that have those skill sets use those skill sets to actually be able to feed your level of automation, to be able to process more jobs on a daily basis. And that is something that is not only for this year, it's happening already for a while, but you will have to make the decision to invest in that software this year, because otherwise it is not going to allow you to grow as a company. And I think the only reason that everybody starts a company is being able to grow with that company, feed that baby, nurse that baby, to actually become big in the end.
Marc, that's a great point Davey makes there about the human resource side of things. Obviously, you touched on earlier that you bring a lot of very special humans to all of your projects. Were you hearing the same thing at Printing United, and do you see the same challenges when you guys get pulled into conversations?
Across the board, we do, Chris. Very, very often, we'll get a call these days to say, "Hey, how can we bring in AI into our workflow technology?" And today we're not going to address AI because I think it's an overplayed terminology, but we do that, of course, and we're bringing in more and more of our knowledge into every workflow development that we do. In fact, a lot of our guys say we've left our signature, we've left the playbook, we've left Scott with the ability to do something that he's never been able to do in his business. And if he goes somewhere else, he'll have to develop something very tailored for that new business in the future. So I would say, yeah, we see it all the time. And what we're also seeing and what we're hearing from a number of our customers is, especially the big packaging companies, that in their demographics and in their geographical areas, it's very difficult to find good skill sets. And those skill sets are unfortunately diminishing. And we go out to the schools ourselves and provide education as best possible. I know that Davy and his team do the same. So we're trying to keep things alive. But without automation, these businesses aren't going to thrive. They're really going to have to take a good look and say, what is our competitive edge? Is it AI? Is it more automation? Is it new technology? How do we innovate? And I think that's where many of Scott's peers are starting to say, is this the year of automation?
Fantastic. And I think let's go back to Scott. Scott, now that the foundation's in place, you've got you've got the stack with Enfocus, you've got the support and the consultancy and delivery from Marc and Significans. What is the next challenge that you'll be tackling, and how quickly can you respond today compared to, say, 2 years ago?
Wow, that's a good question with probably a lot of different answers. Well, we have a solid, scalable solution, and going forward, I don't see any reason why any new business that we have that we can't add the pieces to our workflow, and we do have plans right in front of us to do so. It's very interesting, and I hear the term like you guys do, AI, all the time. And with what Davy was saying, is your users. Where are those pre-press people at? Do you train your own? Because your guys that were in traditional pre-press, they're about all gone. You got your fine art and visual communication people at your schools. That's usually your next source. But unfortunately, they got to come into the system, and with those lessons learned along the way, that's how you're going to build a solid team. But I look at it like this with this product. If I can take the task that you have to do for every job away and put that into one entity, and it does it itself, then that time can be spent on learning and training and working on the things that do need your attention to. That, to me, I think is the key. So I think you're right on target with that, Marc.
Scott, I'm going to stay with you for a day. You have 2 locations. What changes when you move from a single site to a multi-site in terms of workflow, visibility, governance, and standardization? If you could just give us a bit of an insight into what that means, so that people who are currently working on one single site who are thinking about scaling to multi-sites can be aware of the pitfalls.
Well, it's the change management is a lot of it. But if you're doing something successful at one site and it's working very well and you're trending towards the right area, and the introduction of it to your next site, you can use your lessons learned and you can apply it there. You also have the redundancy. Once you have users trained at one site, they have that go-to person that I can go to them and say, hey, I've got this problem, I can't figure it out. That kind of serves itself once you have that in place. The other thing is you're working in real time with each other. You don't have to email a file no more. It's in the system, it's in the folder, it's under the job number. We're talking about this specific thing that we need to be working on. That's huge. You don't have to schedule a Teams meeting to work on it. You can do it over the phone and you're looking at the same thing. So that's one of the best things, and you want everyone following the same SOP for the reason is you want predictable results each time. You want to know if a file is giving you problems here, well, more than likely just changing your zip code is not going to change your problem with that file. That sharing that data and that information is huge, and That's one of the big things when you go to a multi-site facility, is not coming in and saying you're going to change for change. No, we're going to change because this is working over here, and this is something that we can all do together, and we're not going to have to reinvent the wheel every time we try to do something.
Excellent. And Mark, I see you are busy in the chat answering questions, so fantastic there, Mark. Keep doing that. This is exactly what we wanted. It's a seminar. We want conversations. We want to take this offline. This is also a series, so we will be continuing these conversations right the way through the first quarter of 2026. Scott, I'm just going to come to you again, if I may. We spoke offline about Steve Jobs and the ecosystem, the tools, the community, and the mindset. Can you just share your thoughts on that comparison that you made?
Oh, absolutely. You caught me off guard. I didn't think you were going to use that. But the Enfocus solution on Switch, I've been a Mac user since 1989, and started on a 512. If anyone knows what a 512 is, they're going to know that's pretty far back. You know, Steve Jobs created a community for this pre-press thing we do to exist. Wozniak did all the work. He created a device. But Steve Jobs said, no, I'm going to create the user that's going to buy my device, per se. But he also did more than that. He got everyone on the same playing field. We're all using the same software. We're all using the same platform. I see the Enfocus Switch project, saying, well, we don't have the solution for everything, so we're going to let users come in with their app on our platform. And that's the glory of the Mac. They don't try to invent that software. They invite the people that do it the best to come in and play in their sandbox. And everyone gets to pick what they want to use. And they just provide the platform to do it. So that's my comparison with the product, is it's much like the Mac environment.
Davy, that is some kind of compliment, isn't it, being compared to Apple? How does the open architecture change the way Enfocus and partners innovate? And what does that mean to customers long term from your perspective?
Couple of words: easy and accessible. Yeah, and that's the same thing. For example, like Mike said with Steve Jobs, it needs to be easy, needs to answer to the user's needs, and needs to be accessible. I'm not going to say bad things about our competitors. The only thing is, for example, if I compare what we have with the App Store and with our competitors, is that we are open about whatever we can offer to our customers. All our integrations are on the App Store. The App Store is a public website. You do not have to be an Enfocus customer to see, for example, the level of connections, the level of integrations, the level of apps we offer to our Switch users. We have testimonials on that App Store. We have, for example, proof that the integration is there and it works for every Switch customer. A lot of integrations, for example, and a lot of third parties say, can you connect? Can you connect to third party? A lot of those companies say yes, but they don't explain to you how the connection has to be made. And sometimes, for example, can you connect? Yes, we have an API. Here is our API. But you still need to do the work. You still need to invest, for example, in software developers to make that integration between that third party and your solution. And that does not only take a lot of time, a lot of resources money-wise, but also time. And integration can take time. It can take sometimes six months to a year. And that is the added value here, for example, not only answering the question, can you integrate with yes, also showing customers, yes, we can integrate, and this is how you do it, and this is how many customers already done it, and that is the added value that it brings to integrate. And that is a big difference here.
Carl, thank you for joining us. It's been a great session. I'm just going to move over to Marc. Marc, you said that you cannot win alone, and the community is a graphics arts business. What does winning together look like for you and Significans? And what is the customer's role in that ecosystem?
Our customers are the ultimate winners. And without our customers, we really don't have a business. So we wanted to be something special and unique in the industry. And I think we've arrived at that privileged state to become the largest integrator in North and South America, mainly on the basis that we're doing something very special. We've taken a very neutral stance on the customer and the products. We develop apps, we develop scripts and codes for the customers. We want to make sure that they have an incredible experience, but ultimately, the win for the customer is they're realizing that software is bringing them levels of automation that they haven't seen in their business before. We are big, big believers that to achieve the highest levels of automation, you can't do it without integrating the software solutions, so getting them all connected and communicating. And finally, the biggest win is removing the complexities from the software. And Davy has hit that right on the head. Removing the complexities means that you can create an easy button. We call it turbo switch here at Significans, but ultimately we want to remove that complexity of software because Scott and his team are in production for corporate North America. Why should they be manipulating and coding and scripting their software when they can, develop a relationship with someone who can do it faster and better for them?
Fantastic answer, Mark. And I think
Yeah.
the question that we need to ask is really anyone who's thinking about investing in their software stack, wanting to get better automation, look at their workflow. What would your advice be to one of your peers?
Well, you have to start that journey somewhere. Do your research. Map your present day workflow. Where's your soft spot? Where do you need to improve? Those little pieces or nuggets are out there everywhere in your workflow. And then, like I told you before, I'd interviewed other developers. You got to go into that project with somebody you can work with comfortably. And, design your project within your means. Adhere to your timelines. Make sure your Gantt chart is being achieved. I can't, I've integrated so many of these before, and I've worked with numerous vendors on this over the years. At the end of the day, did it do what we wanted it to do? Did I allow mission creep to cloud what I originally set out to achieve? If you have all those things in place, and believe me, I've done enough projects, you're going to find things along the way that you're going to want to do. But when that vendor just welcomes it and sees it and is going to work with you, then you're working with a good vendor. And a good vendor would be the first one to tell you no. No, you don't want to do that now.
Fantastic. That's a great way to finish there, Scott. I'm just going to share right on the screen right now so that people can download that case study that will share those ROI and those real world numbers that Minuteman Press Westendorf was able to realize through working with both Significans and Enfocus. We're 10 past the hour. Thank you ever so much for my guests today. We will be back very, very soon with the next episode in this series. Thank you to everyone that came on today. We've got a few people very quickly. Thank you, Tom. Yes. Thanks, James. Thanks for making this an interactive session. And our friends and colleagues are here to help you in the future on your software journey. Mark, Davy, anything you'd like to close off with?
Big thank you again.
Well, thank you, everybody in the audience. It's just January 2026, and we have a lot of things planned for this year. So follow us on LinkedIn, and we'll bring some news throughout the year.
Get well soon, Davy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris.